On this week's episode of A Drier Dose of Disney, Jared shares with us a typically unknown secret on how to navigate the parks with kids who are not tall enough to ride every ride.
Welcome to another episode of A Drier Dose of Disney. I'm your host, Jared Dreyer, and today we have got actually a really great episode for you. This is going to be probably a shorter episode, but this material is so important. It's actually something I didn't know a lot about until I needed it, until I started using it. And had I known that this was available, I probably would have used it a little bit earlier even, but it is about child swap. So how are you handling families at the park if you have young children or kids that are not tall enough to ride the rides? And this one is an awesome topic to talk about. So we're going to have a lot of fun today. This one's actually so important. We talked about, there's not a lot of material here, so this is going to be a shorter episode today. So we talked about, do we do its own episode or do we incorporate this into a different episode? And we said this material is so important. We want it to have its very own episode. We want to make sure that we cover this so that all of our listeners know about child swap and the options at the park. So this is going to be a good time. So wherever you're listening to us, if you're on a podcast, please click subscribe. Or if you're out on YouTube watching our video version, you can click subscribe there as well. Our numbers are growing very rapidly, which is awesome. We've got a lot of really good content out there, and there is plenty more coming. In fact, we have almost 50 episodes already lined up, ready to go. So there are tons more episodes still coming your way. So you definitely want to click subscribe. Today's episode, like I said, we're talking about child swap. You're actually going to save a lot of time and a lot of headache with this method. So again, we do ask if you found a way to save some money, save some time, improve your life while you're at the parks. Visit us over at Patreon, make a donation, become a subscriber there. You're going to get early access to our Butterbeer episode, which will come in 2023 for everyone else. You're going to get early access to our episode about how to go to Disney for free, or almost free, which is going to come in 2023 for everyone else as well. So we love our subscribers, so please look for us there, and you will get access to early content, as well as have the ability to join us on some different podcasts or submit questions to our podcast. So a lot of cool things there. So my disclaimer, in a lot of our episodes, we talk about I haven't done everything. I haven't been to every hotel. I haven't eaten at every single possible restaurant or every single possible food. This one, my disclaimer is we have done this, and we have done this at every single ride that it's available on. We have had that experience. We know how this works. So my disclaimer is you need to trust us on this one. You definitely will learn something from us today, and you will use it just like we do. So this is one of the coolest things. So as we jump into this, I'm going to start out by talking about what child swap is and how it works at the different parks. But I do have to say, when you're comparing Disney to Universal, I know a lot of families only go to one or the other, or, you know, if they're fortunate enough to be out there in Orlando for more than a week or in LA for a prolonged period of time, they may try to hit both. There are some things that Disney does better than Universal, and there are some things that Universal does better than Disney. For example, one of our previous episodes, Universal does single rider lines better than Disney. They have more of them. They move quicker. They're easier to access. They make the wait times a lot shorter, where Disney only has a couple, especially out in Orlando. They only have 4 total between all 4 parks. This is one of those tips, child swap. Universal does it better. It's not even comparable between the two. They are so much better at Universal using child swap than they are at Disney. I encourage you, if you have little kids and you want to go to Universal, go. The child swap options there are phenomenal. They work really well, and we're going to talk you through each and every one of those. But let's start by talking about what is child swap. So child swap is a program that all the parks adopted a long time ago for families that have little kids that may not be able to ride all the rides. So for example, depending on the ride, you may have a child that's too short. Or you may have a child that's too scared if they're too young and they don't want to ride a ride. So child swap gives you the ability to still ride that ride while swapping out who's watching that child. So that way everybody gets a chance to ride it without having to wait in the queue multiple times. Okay. Now I say that with a caveat that, again, Universal does this better. There is an element that second person will still have to wait. They just won't wait nearly as long as they would have for the normal queue. The second piece is, though Universal does it better, they had to. And the reason they had to is they have bigger rides, they have scarier rides. Everything at Universal is a lot more intense than it is at Disney. When you think about it, when you go to Disney, Everybody can ride It's a Small World. Everybody can ride Pirates of the Caribbean. Though some kids may be scared of Haunted Mansion, everybody can ride Haunted Mansion. Okay. Universal, that's not the case. There are more height restrictions at Universal. There's actually only a couple rides that don't have the restrictions on them. And those are going to be found in obviously the kid type areas like in Seuss Land. So that's a difference on why Universal does it better is they had to do it better. Okay. So if you think about it, I'm at the park, I've got a family, and even especially in our tip of the day later is going to revolve around that family of 4, 5, or 6 where you've got multiple kids and some of the kids are smaller than others. Then you want to stick around for our tip of the day because this one is a phenomenal tip that we have used when we travel in groups because if you know us, that we only have one daughter, but if you had multiple kids, our tip of the day is going to be invaluable for you. So definitely stick around for that. But let's jump in and talk about how this works at Disney. So for Disney, if you have a child that's too small to ride, so for example, Indiana Jones, that is a really cool ride at Disneyland out in Anaheim. It's actually one of my favorite rides because I'm a huge Indiana Jones fan. That ride has one of the tallest height restrictions for any of the rides at Disneyland or California Adventure. It's up there with the Incredicoaster. And in fact, those are the two with the highest one. So if you have little kids, they are not going to be able to ride Indiana Jones. What you do is you go and approach the line, and there's always a cast member out front in the queue. And you tell that cast member, we have a small child and we would like to do child swap. What they're going to do is they're going to give you a little business card sized piece of paper that says child swap for that ride. And it allows typically 2 riders to return to that ride. And they will hand that to the person that's going on the ride. Okay. Not the person waiting, but the person that goes on the ride. That person will take that card with them. They will go through the normal queue, the normal wait time, whatever that is, just like anybody else. They're going to go through and they're going to ride the ride. And then when they come off the ride, they're then going to go hand that card off to the other person. And that other person's going to be able to then go back to the cast member and check in and say, my spouse just got off the ride. I now want to go ride it. And they will then at Disney allow you to enter the Lightning Lane queue. And you're going to go all the way up through Lightning Lane and you're going to get on close to the front of the ride. Now, if you're familiar with the Lightning Lane at Disney, you're going to know that the typical wait time for Lightning Lane is usually about 5 to 15 minutes, depending on the ride, more often than not coming in between 5 and 10. So that second person is still going to wait 5 to 10 minutes to go ride the ride. That's one of the key differences between Universal and Disney. We'll get there in just a second when we talk about Universal. But they're able to bypass the rest of the line. So if it's a 45-minute wait for Indiana Jones, they're now going to go wait 5 or 10 minutes. They get to ride the ride. And then they come off and then the whole family unit's together and they can keep going. So basically what you did is you gave up an extra 5 or 10 minutes of queue time for that second person to ride, but then you were all able to ride the ride while the child who was not able to ride stayed off and waited with the parent. Okay. So when you're at Disneyland or Disney World, let's talk about what does that other parent do while you're going through the queue. Okay. Typically what we have done is when our daughter was little, we would have her in a stroller and the one parent would go through and ride the ride and then come out and then we'd swap as it's intended to do. But when I had my daughter, I would go, especially Indiana Jones, right over there by the Jungle Cruise and Indiana Jones ride is a set of shops. I would go walk through the shops. I would go check those out. If it's going to be a long line and my wife is going first, and I'm going to be waiting 30 or 40 minutes, I may go over right there. There's a Dole Whip station and go get a Dole Whip for my daughter and I, and we may share that and sit, but we're going to check out things in the park. We're going to go have fun looking at what else there is to do. As she got older, we may go do Tarzan's Treehouse. That's a couple feet away from Indiana Jones. So you can go through the whole Tarzan's Treehouse. She can walk through at the end. There's pots, pans, drums, things like that she can bang on and have a little bit of fun as a kid. And that's a good time. If the wait time was short enough, you could go ride Pirates of the Caribbean. It's right there. It's just a few feet away. You could go do the Tiki Room. So at Disneyland, there's a lot of options for where the bigger rides are like Indiana Jones, where you could go do another ride or go have fun. Likewise, if you're out in Tomorrowland and it's Space Mountain, you could do the Buzz Lightyear Astro Blasters. You could go check out any of the other rides over in that area. If they're tall enough, again, they could probably do Autopia. They could ride with you, but you could go do a ride. You could go eat some food. You could go shop in the shops. right? And then when the other person swaps, I always tell them, perfect time for a bathroom break. You're going to have about 10 or 15 minutes while I go and write it. And in 10 or 15 minutes, I'll be right back out and we'll keep going. Now, at Universal, again, this is where they do things better. They're going to have your whole party stick together. You're all going to wait together. So you're going to go through the queue, you're going to stand in line, and you're going to wait just like anyone else. And the cast members there are fantastic because they are watching as you get closer to the front. They are looking for A, kids that aren't tall enough, B, maybe kids that aren't brave enough or maybe scared or in tears. They're looking for any indication of somebody may not be writing this. And what they're going to do is they're going to ask you as you get closer, is everyone writing today or do you need child swap? Especially if you've got a full bag full of gear and they have lockers out front, they know that you're not going to be taking your bag on there. And you obviously let them know, yes, we're doing child swap. So my example here is we use this quite a bit on Harry Potter's in the Forbidden Journey because you get to go through the whole castle, which is a really cool experience. So we would wait through the queue. Our daughter would see all the cool Harry Potter stuff. She'd see the interactive videos that happen as you're going through the queue where the characters are telling you about Hogwarts and what happens there. And then they would obviously tell when we got close to the front of the line that she is not tall enough to ride and we have a backpack with us. Or maybe we had a stroller and typically it's tough to fit the stroller through the queue. So I'd say leave that out front, even if you're going to do child swap. But if you had a small stroller, you could probably maneuver it through the queue. And when you get to the front, they're going to say child swaps right here. There's a door typically you go through. And you go wait through that door with your child. And the best part is they usually have a video on that's kid friendly. So for Universal, because they're tied to Nickelodeon, you've got usually SpongeBob SquarePants going. You may have some Woody Woodpecker cartoons going because they have those from the classic things. They also have all the Popeye and all the Cartoon Land stuff. So they're usually going to have some kind of video going that is very kid friendly, or they're going to have interactive things for the kid to do. So some of the places they've got like trucks and cars and things that the kid can play with. You're going to sit and wait while the person gets on the ride, which at Forbidden Journey is like 5 feet away from you. And you can watch them actually get on the ride. They're going to go through the ride and the other side of the door. So there's 2 doors. The other side is right where they come off. So as they come off, there's a sign right there that says child swap. And that parent can go right back into the room and they can swap with you and take over that kid. And then you go ride. That's one of the best features at Universal is the fact that you do not have to wait in the queue. Again, even the Lightning Lane queue, you get to walk right onto the ride on the next available car, which is awesome. So it's so much quicker. And then you were able to be in line together. So you were able to have that family experience together. And the only time you're separated is while the one person's riding and then the next person's riding. So for most rides, they're 3 to 4 minutes long. You're only apart for the 3 to 4 minutes and then swap 3 to 4 minutes more. And then you're back on your way and you only lost about 3 or 4 minutes in the park. So that's why Universal does it better. And of course, they've got these rooms at almost every single ride. Always ask the queue person, the cast member out front, how it works, because it's specifically in Universal Hollywood at like the Jurassic World ride down on the lower lot, they have a play area where the kids can go play like with all the sand and all the dinosaur bones and stuff like that. Their child swap's just a little bit different. And what they'll tell you is, if you would like, you can go in there now. So instead of waiting through the whole queue to go to the child swap area, you can actually just take your kid right then and let them go play with the bones and the sand and do all that kind of stuff while the other person's waiting in line. So that's up to you. Maybe your kid is active enough that they would like to go play and do something fun rather than wait in the queue with both parents. You can do that at the Jurassic Park or Jurassic World ride down at Universal Hollywood. So that's why we always say ask just to make sure. But more often than not, it's a room at the very end and you're going to just go on, swap, go on, and you're on your way again, moving on through your day. The disadvantage of Universal is if you do want to do child swap, you typically do have to wait in the queue together, okay? Unless it's like the Jurassic Park place where you can go play. The reason is if you go all the way through the queue and you come off the ride and you're doing child swap, if your other party is outside of the queue, you'd have to exit the queue and then they're not going to let you cut to the front. So that's why you do want to wait together and keep your party together and go into the room and then use the room and swap through and then come back out. So that is the only disadvantage, is if you were looking to go get some food or go shop, chances are you're going to miss your opportunity to ride. Okay. Now in our case, so today, and this is a tip that I have for a lot of people, if you have older kids who either get sick Maybe you have somebody who's not physically ready to ride that ride. Maybe they don't meet all the requirements, or somebody's pregnant in your party and they're not going to ride the ride. What I recommend is you can all still wait in the queue together. You can still socialize, have a good time. And then when you get to the front, that person can go wait in that child swap room while everyone else rides. And then when you all come off, they're waiting there for you and you all leave together. It's also a great tactic, like I said earlier, for them to hold a backpack. So instead of using the lockers, we always recommend if somebody in your party doesn't want to ride, go through child swap. They can hold all the backpacks and then give them to you as soon as you get back off the ride. They're not carrying them the whole time. So those are the reasons that Universal ultimately is better than Disney. There is just so much more versatility with the way they do it. You get to stay together, you get to have fun, you get to keep talking, and then your time apart is very short. So that's why we love it over there. So our I can do this all day tip of the day for this week is keep in mind, like I said earlier, Disneyland, their ticket tells you 2 people can go back in. Likewise, at Universal, they don't give you a ticket or anything, but usually the parent can ride with a child. What that means is for your families of 4, 5, or 6, okay? If you have one child, it's just one who doesn't want to ride or one who's too short, when you go through, mom can take the other kids on. So let's say there's one other child or 2 other kids. They can go with that parent and ride. And when they come off and you all meet back in the room, now dad can go and dad can take that child again. So that child actually can ride it twice, or the 2 kids can ride it twice. Now, I've not heard if there's a limit on how many people can do it. So you can't have a huge party of 10, I would assume. And one parent's going to sit back with one kid. And so 8 people ride it. And now when they swap, 8 people are going again because now dad's sitting with the kid, but everybody wanted to ride it again. I don't think they'll let you do that, but you could definitely get away with 1 or 2 kids. And I know for a fact at Disney, the ticket says you can take 2 people. So that is a great opportunity for your child, if they like the ride, to ride it multiple times with an adult by going through it with one parent and then going through it again with the second parent. So that's a cool advantage for them. They get a chance to ride that multiple times, especially if it's a ride that they absolutely love. You can do that multiple times with them. Again, if this tip saves you any time in the parks or makes your park journey easier, visit us over at Patreon, become a subscriber, and support us there. And then just a shameless little plug. We do have a condo out in Orlando, down in Champions Gate. We do rent it out. It is in the links, whether you're on the podcast or the video version over on YouTube. Check that out. Our direct link that's out there is going to be the least expensive way for you to rent the condo while you're out there. We do advertise through Airbnb and Vrbo as well, but our direct link, like I said, is a little less expensive. So go check that out. We would love to host you at our site. On our website for that condo, you can see all the pictures of the place and decide before you want to go if that's where you'd like to stay. But we would love to host you. It does have 3 bedrooms, plenty of room to sleep up to 8 people. So especially if you're going in a larger family or a group, it's the way to go. It's cheaper than the hotels. It's close to the parks. You're only 2 exits away on the highway. And like I said, we would love to host you there. So check out our condo in our links on the podcast or on the video version on YouTube. Thank you and have a magical week. We'll talk to you later.